Okay, today's video is going to focus on semicolons. In that first box, what is it? You're going to put semicolon. For the rules and examples, there are 3 rules I want you to know with semicolons. First, you must have 2 complete ideas that could stand on their own. So when you're using a semicolon, it's got to be 2 ideas that could stand on their own. Second, they must be related to each other. So you cannot have 2 completely unrelated things joined with a semicolon. Finally, do not capitalize the word after the semicolon. So let's take a look at this example down here, which follows all 3 of those rules. Freedom is not free. So this first part right here is a complete idea that could stand on its own. If somebody walked in a room and said, freedom is not free, we would have an idea of what they were talking about. The second part, people throughout our nation's history have sacrificed a lot to preserve our freedom. That is another complete idea that could stand on its own. Let's see if we've got the second rule. They must be related. This one's talking about freedom. This is talking about how people have sacrificed for our freedom. So it follows the second rule. So check rule number 1, check rule number 2. Do not capitalize the word after the semicolon. So if you take a look at this P right here, it's not a capital P. It follows all 3 rules. Therefore, it is a correct usage of a semicolon. Okay, I want you to take a look at this example right here. Pause the video and using those first 3 rules we learned about, tell me what's wrong with this example. Hopefully you took a moment to pause the video and identify the problem here. So let's take a look. Do we have the first rule being followed? 2 complete ideas that could stand on their own. I enjoy walking to the park. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own. Tacos taste good. That is also a complete idea that could stand on its own. Let's take a look at the second rule. The second rule is you have to have 2 ideas that are related. This first one is talking about going to the park, and the other one just randomly starts talking about tacos. It's violating the second rule for semicolons because you've got 2 ideas. Yes, they could stand on their own, but they're not related. Therefore, you cannot join them with a semicolon. All right, I want you to take a look at this. Maybe pause the video and decide, does this fix the problem that we saw a moment ago? All right, let's take a look together. We've got 2 complete ideas that could stand on their own. I enjoy walking in the park. The trees are beautiful at the park this time of year. So that's a complete idea that could also stand on its own. They're related. One is talking about going to the park and one is talking about trees in the park. So it follows the second rule. Finally, the third rule, the T here is not capitalized, therefore this sentence correctly uses a semicolon. Okay, I want you to pause the video again, take a look at this sentence here and tell me what is wrong with its use of a semicolon here. Alright, hopefully you saw that when you were checking this, it did not follow rule number 1. Let's take a look at the first part here. To be able to win the game, and do you kind of hear how that's not a complete idea? If somebody walked in the room and said, to be able to win the game, we'd all kind of be like, well, what do we need to do to be able to win the game? It breaks rule number 1, therefore we cannot have a semicolon here because this is not a complete idea that could stand on its own. Take a look and see, does this fix the problem? Take a moment, pause the video, check it out. Does this fix the problem? Okay, hopefully you saw that it fixed the problem, that we have a complete idea here. We had to practice harder than ever before to win the game. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own. We ended up winning 43-0. That's a complete idea that can stand on its own. They're both related because they're talking about the game. The third rule, which I didn't point out on the last slide, but if you look here, this is a capital W. So not only did it break rule number 1, it also broke rule number 3. But when we take a look at this slide here, we've got a lowercase w. We're in a good spot. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to go to the Use It box on your notes, and I want you to describe how you woke up and got ready this morning using a semicolon to do so. Pause the video, take a moment on your notes, and write a sentence that uses a semicolon correctly. All right, here's an example here. It says, I woke up and cooked breakfast, and then we've got a semicolon. It is my mom's birthday today, and I wanted to surprise her with a special meal. Follows all three rules. If you're not sure on your example, I want you to pause the video and ask your teacher to come take a look at it just to make sure you did it correctly. Here's some more examples if you want to see a few additional examples of how to use semicolons correctly. Your job now. I want you to add semicolons to your writing to add style and flair to your writing. Just don't overdo it. Nobody likes too much of a good thing.